Welcome to our Saturday News Forum. For today, we have a very interesting topic. Sitwasyon sa West Philippine Sea at ating exclusive economic zone. And we invited to discuss this very important topic that has to do with defending our national sovereignty and the man of the hour is Commodore Jay Tarriela, who is the spokesperson of the Philippine Coast Guard on the West Philippine Sea. Ano ba yung bakit?
Tawagin muna natin yung ano saglit lang sa buhay. Request na parang ilaw bawasan kasi sila lighting sa amin.
May betong na sa side niya. Tapos papatay ito may gulay na. May gulay. Yung sa side niya. Yung sa side nito. Gulay na twist pa siya. Sa akin. May araw ko ron. Tayo na. Yan na wala. Ay na. Masula. Ang nasa likod mo. Yan. Silid na ba? Nailaw ka sila. Nagagay sa right eh. Puti lang yan.
Okay.
Okay na, sabihin nyo kasi ang usap tayo rito pag magpakit ang ulan, hindi rin gagamitin. Okay na. Thanks.
Yeah, let's give a chance to Commodore to give an opening statement because current situation in light of what happened recently, kung nakita from the incident sa Resto.
After nung mangyari yung February 6 incident, ano ba yun ang sitwasyon? Not on the ground, po on the sea.
Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Magandang umaga po sa nag-arrange ng ating media forum po ngayong araw. Ang Philippine Coast Guard po ay nandito para magbigay po sa inyo ng kaliwanagan sa mga nakaraang insidente sa Ayungin Shoal. Kung matatandaan niyo po, ang Philippine Coast Guard ay nagkaroon po ng laser incident noong February 6 kung saan ang PRT Malapascua ay nag-provide ng assistance sa ating Armed Forces of the Philippines while they were conducting warfare, yung pag-supply ng ating mga troops sa PRT Sierra Madre. At ang Department of Foreign Affairs po ay kaagawang nag-file ng diplomatic protest para po ipahayag ang ating pagtutol sa ginawang pangharas ng China Coast Guard sa ating Philippine Coast Guard vessel. Ang ginawa po ng Philippine Coast Guard after that incident is we keep on monitoring ang paggalaw ng China Coast Guard sa vicinity ng Ayungin Shoal. And when our AIS data, we got the AIS data, sinasabi meron pa rin presence ng China Coast Guard sa Ayungin Shoal. Kaagapan naman direct ng deployment ng Philippine Coast Guard aircraft, si Admiral Artemio Abu, ating pong commandant ng Philippine Coast Guard, to verify kung ang China Coast Guard nga po ay nananatili pa rin sa Ayungin Shoal. So, noong February 21, nakapagpalipad po tayo ng ating PCG caravan. Kasama po ang ilang mga kasama natin dito sa media. At ating pong nasaksihan na ang China Coast Guard po ay nananatiling ng kanilang presensya sa Ayungin Shoal. Ang nangyari lang po, umalis yung China Coast Guard 5205 noong February 8. Pero on that same day, pinalitan naman po siya ng China Coast Guard 5304. So, ang naging flight po ng Philippine Coast Guard noong February 21, nung palapit pa lang po sila ng Sabina Shoal, ay sila po ay kagad na radio challenge ng China Coast Guard 5304 at sa dalawang lingwahe na hindi naman natin masyadong naiintindihan sa Philippine Coast Guard. But the first part of the radio challenge was in English language and then the second part was in Chinese. Alam ko po na ipamigay na rin po natin ito sa ating mga kasamahan sa media. After po ng radio challenge ng China Coast Guard na to, sinagutin po siya ng piloto ng Philippine Coast Guard aircraft. At sinabi na ang Philippine Coast Guard ay nagkakandak ng routine MDA flight at sila ay sinabihang umalis sa ating exclusive economic zone. Ito rin po ang pagkakataon na na-spot natin ang 26 alleged Chinese maritime militia, no, sa palibot ng Sabina Shoal. And then after that, from Sabina Shoal, tayo po ay pumunta sa airspace naman ng Ayungin Shoal. And when we approach as near as 10 nautical miles, no, sa airspace ng Ayungin Shoal, tayo na naman po ay ni-radio challenge ng China Coast Guard 5304. At sinabi na naman, and the way we understand it is requesting us as well to depart. No? At nag-responde ulit ang Philippine Coast Guard pilot at sinabing sila ay nagkakandak ng MDA flight and we are directing the China Coast Guard to depart immediately. We also spotted 4 Chinese maritime militia inside Ayungin Shoal when we went to over the Ayungin. No? And it is also interesting to note na ang China Coast Guard has been maintaining 1 nautical mile distance, no, from BRP Sierra Madre. Sa kasalukuyan po, ito ang ating sitwasyon sa Ayungin Shoal. At handa na po akong linawin pa kung meron pa po kayong mga katanungan.
Commodore, good morning. So ilan, all in all, ilan ang barko, kasi wala namang difference yan yung maritime militia vessel at saka Chinese Coast Guard vessel. Ilan ang nakita nyo within the EEZ ng Pilipinas na malapit doon sa Sabina and Ayungin Shoal?
All in all, sir, we have 30 Chinese maritime militia and 1 China Coast Guard vessel.
So, technically, ito yung tinatawag yung swarming.
Yes, sir. Technically, sir, ito yung tinatawag nating swarming. No? Kung maalala niyo po yung mga photos na inilabas ng Philippine Coast Guard, meron po mga bangko na magkakadikit lang sila, no? Anchored together. And then, although dinideny naman ng ating ng China na ito ay maritime militia, sinasabing they are just ordinary Chinese fishing vessels. Pero makikita natin na they're just loitering there. Wala naman silang ginagawa, hindi naman sila engaged in fishing.
So, itong after ng Feb 6 incident at saka subsequent filing ng diplomatic protest, nadagdagan, nabawasan ang bilang ng mga barko ng China na natuon sa paligid ng Ayungin at ng Sabina Shoal.
Actually, sir, yan yung dahilan bakit tayo nagpalipat ng MDA flight. No? Because despite the diplomatic protest that we filed barely 2 weeks ago, nandito pa rin ang China Coast Guard at nandito pa rin ang kanilang mga Chinese maritime militia.
MDA is Maritime Domain Awareness.
Yes, sir. Maritime domain awareness.
So, nung nagkaroon ng dahilan sa kanan nagpalipat, ibig sabihin hindi ipapatrol yung aeroplano natin?
Ang Philippine Coast Guard po ay we are strategically, and optimizing the deployment of our aircraft. So we have the AIS data that we receive. Ito yung via satellite na monitor natin kung ano yung mga barko. So once we have information about particular vessels swarming in our maritime features, ito yung mga area na pinupuntahan ng aeroplano natin, sir.
Tayo ba may, of course, alam natin, hindi lang barko, hindi lang aeroplano ng Philippine Coast Guard o even ng AFP ang lumilipad yan. Minsan nga, meron Australian. Meron bang access kayo sa Coast Guard? Hindi ko matatanong sa AFP. Doon sa mga information na nakikita nila na presensya ng foreign vessels, particularly Chinese vessels. May access kayo. Doon sa mga Amerikano, ng Hapon, ng Australian.
Actually, sir, sa mga instances naman na nakukuhaan dito ng ating mga allies, they are also being shared to the Philippine Coast Guard.
Meaning sharing after the fact o parang naka-livestream sa inyo?
Mahirap na tanong yan, sir. Kasi wala tayong capability to monitor what they see on a real time. Parang tipo, if their aircraft is flying right now, and if we're expecting a real-time monitor, we cannot actually monitor real-time kung ano yung lipad nila.
So, larawan lang na may oras?
Yes, sir, basically.
Kano ka-delay yung reporting sa inyo? O yung sharing pala? Hindi reporting, sharing ng information.
Sometimes hours, but definitely not days.
And considering kung barko ito, yung isang oras, hindi pa nakakaliw yan.
Yes, sir.
I understand tatlo lang ang patrol vessel sa Philippine Coast Guard na nakadeploy sa EDC natin.
What we
Overall.
No, sir. The Philippine Coast Guard have 3 offshore patrol vessels. Dalawang 97 meters na nanggaling sa Japan na niload natin. Isang 83 meters na nanggaling naman sa France. So, ito ang tatlong offshore patrol vessels lang natin. But definitely, we also have much more smaller vessels na ginagamit natin sa pagpapatrolya sa West Philippine Sea. For example, DRP Malapascua is one of those 44-meter vessel na nakuha din natin sa Japan.
Pero Manila yung capability nito, ano? Yung 44 meter.
Yes, sir. Dahil mas maliit siya, sir, of course, you have to consider yung how it can sustain yung kanyang patrol. Kung umalis siya for example, Monday, hindi mo siya may expect na for the next 15 days, nandun siya. We have, of course, because of limited fuel capacity, the supplies as well to sustain yung buhay ng ating mga crew. And then at the same time, kung malalaki din yung alon, sa maliit na barko na gano'n, hindi niya rin talaga masusustain yung patrol niya na yun. Babalik at babalik lang siya. Kaya we have been requesting our legislators to support the Coast Guard modernization for us to acquire more offshore patrol vessels.
Yung bang military base ng Pilipinas sa Pag-asa Island, na-utilize nyo? O come and go lang kayo din, pupunta, bago maubos ang fuel, babalik na? O may imba kayong fuel matapos sa Pag-asa Island?
Right now, sir, ang Pag-asa Island ay wala pa pong kakayahan na mag-refuel ng ating mga government vessels.
So come and go.
Yes, sir.
Ito usapan ng mga admiral sa Navy. Si Professor Carlos, bigyan ko na ng baka yung tanong ka, 6 na buwan daw na naging National Security Advisor. Almost twice a month. Nakatalo ko doon, nakita ko larawan mo. Nagre-lecture lamang. Pero hanggang sa umalis siya, wala man lang ibinigay na guidance kung anong gagawin niyo pag challenge kayo ng barko ng China. Kaya hanggang ngayon, kung di mo yung pinapamahan ninyo, pasahan ng tanong patakas kung anong gagawin. Totoo ba na hanggang sa ngayon, wala kayong protocol kung anong gagawin? Maski putukan kayo, hindi kayo pwede pumatok.
Actually, sir, i-clarify ko lang. Professor Clemita Carlos, who used to be the National Security Advisor, is also a good friend. She has also been kind to the Philippine Coast Guard during her term as NTFWP's chair. But regarding your question, sir, if there is an existing procedure or standard ways for us to respond, etong mga communications protocol na to, and operational protocol in what we call the rules on the use of force ay in place na even before Secretary Clemita Carlos took office. To be fair with her, this and also to be fair with former NSA Escalon, all of these protocols are already in place, responding to major challenges and of course the rules on the use of force.
So, iiwas palagi yung protocol.
Well, basically, sir, according to the rules on the use of force, we are not expected to use force unless otherwise an equivalent force will be used towards it.
Ano yung gamit ng laser, point, military grade lasers? What do you consider that? Parang consider provocative act or something that requires similar action on the part of the Coast Guard?
To answer your question bluntly, sir, we cannot do a reciprocity of action because first of all, we don't have laser technology. And secondly, how are we going to label it, whether it's a provocative or aggressive or just a form of harassment? There are so many instances I've been asked how I'm going to label it. But again, I would like to answer it the same way I did. This is the job of the Department of Foreign Affairs. How are they going to label this kind of behavior from the Chinese?
Ano proof natin? Kasi sabi ng ambassador ng China, sinungaling daw kayo. Sabi nung kanilang foreign minister, sinungaling kayo, hindi namin tinutukan ng laser yung Coast Guard vessel ng Pilipinas. Anong proof nyo na talagang nalutok na gano'n?
We have already released the photos and videos public, and then the international community has already weighed in on this kind of action from China. The United States government, the Japanese, the Australians have condemned such action from China. In my case, the Philippine Coast Guard, we're not going to label him that he's a liar, but I guess we're just going to leave it that way.
Bakit sabi ni Chinese President Xi Jinping, nung nag-si Presidente Marcos sa China recently, he's willing to find a solution or find a compromise sa territorial dispute sa South China Sea. It seems that gano'n ang stand ng Presidente, pero yung level sila, parang hindi na buhay memo. Di ba? Ano yung, may balita ba tayo kung ano yung ginawa ni Presidente Xi Jinping after that meeting with President Marcos?
I'm sorry, sir,
Like,
but
instructions to,
I don't have non-research information.
Ganito na lang, Commodore. Anong nangyari then and now? Bumait ba yung mga Chinese o hindi?
I think the best way to put it is the difference ng mga nakaraang taong circumstances na nangyayari sa West Philippine Sea at sa mga nakaraang linggo right after the visit of President Bongbong Marcos in China is that all of the incidents that are happening right now is we are making it publicly available. That's why there is awareness among among the Filipino people, among the media practitioner, and the international community is also aware of what the Chinese have been doing in the past weeks. So it is not correlated to say kung sasabihin natin after the visit ba saka lang tumaas at naging aggressive ang China, or after the visit ba saka lang tayo nagpa-publicize ng ginagawa ng China. So with that responser, I cannot say that these incidents ay tumataas or dati na talagang nangyayari.
Wala po kayong tracking. Diba bawat incident i-report meticulously?
Again, sir, as far as the incidents that happened in the past weeks, we were able to publicize. But for the previous incidents that happened, I am not authorized to disclose.
Ganito na lang po. Kasi dalawang bagay yun. Medyo may basic po ako ng statistics. Pwede natin sabihin tumaas ang insidente, dalawang bagay. Talagang tumaas o tumaas ang insidente. Ang tanong ko sa inyo, then and now, nadagdagan ba ang patrolya nyo? Kasi kung wala kayong patrolya, kahit 1,000 insidente, zero ang reported yun.
Tama answer. That's a very good question. Then and now, the Philippine Coast Guard has intensified our presence in the West Philippine Sea. With the guidance of our President, for the Philippine Coast Guard being directed to maintain our presence in the exclusive economic zone and to have constant presence and deployment.
So yung then panahon ni Duterte, yung now panahon ni Bongbong, tama po ba ako o tama ako?
Not so accurate, sir.
So kailan po dumami ang patrolya ng Philippine Coast Guard at kailan nagsimula ang policy ninyo na huwag itago sa publiko yung mga insidente nangyayari sa disputed water?
For the first press release that we did regarding the laser incident, there are like 2 paragraphs that we inserted there saying na last June last year, the same laser incident already happened. And then August, we were also saying that during the last mobilization of the armed forces of the Philippines, the Philippine Coast Guard also assisted and escorted. Ito yung time na tinanggal yung cover ng 70mm naval gun nila. So, from there, that's my response. when did we start publicizing, and what are those instances that we didn't publicize?
Sa military parlance, pag inalis ang cover ng main gun ng isang barko, ibig sabihin po ito, tama po ba?
I cannot speak for the military, sir. I'm a Coast Guard officer.
Pero yun po ang yun ang standard sa karagatan. Pag yung kasalubong ng armado, nag-alis ng taklob ng kanilang baril, mandakat po po.
We filed a diplomatic protest regarding that behavior of China during that time.
Parang, I understand, mga 200 plus diplomatic protests na pinahin ng PRO.
Yes, sir. More than 200.
Pero ang majority yata yung sinasagot ng Chinese government or Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
That's why, if you're going to look at the behavior of China whenever we file diplomatic protests and whenever we publicize their bullying behavior, you can actually hear Chinese embassy saying something kapag pinapublicize lang natin. For diplomatic protests, sometimes they're just silent about it. But every time we make things publicly, saka sila lumalabas, nag-explain, nag-justify. So, I think we are in the right direction right now. With all those occurrences of bullying behavior, harassment of Filipino fishermen, that the Philippine Coast Guard can document. Once we publicize it, we are expecting that the Chinese will react.
Okay.
Yung Commodore, yung pagmamangisdang Pilipino, pinapayagan ng mga Chinese na ito na makapakisa doon sa lugar na may swarming silang ginagawa.
Well, ang mga Filipino fishermen naman po, sir, ay nakakapangisda pa rin sa mga areas na yan. Ang problema nga lang, sir, is that they are being harassed by the Chinese Coast Guard. If there are instances that they will be engaged in fishing in a particular area na kung saan madalanan sila ng China Coast Guard vessel.
Ako nagtitinda at ako hinulga, pwede ako magsumbong sa polis. Yung upang mangingisdang hinaras, pwede magsumbong sa inyo. Ito ho, binubundol-bundol kami. Pupunta po ba kayo ron?
Yes, sir. Again, Philippine Coast Guard po, every time we conduct patrol sa West Philippine Sea, nagkakaroon po kami ng radio communication kapag na-detect po namin na merong fishing vessels na Pilipino in the surrounding area. Our vessels call the radio and telling them na if there are instances na kayo ay mahaharas or may insidente na kayo ay mabubuli, please feel free to report to the Philippine Coast Guard, and the Philippine Coast Guard will assist them and support their fishing activities.
Commodore, si Pangulong Marcos may sinabi 2 months ago na hindi siya kapag ng kahit isang pulgada ng teritoryo ng Pilipinas ay mawala, makuha ng iba. Anong epekto sa inyong moral? Tumapak ba kayo? O sumigla? O natakot? Nakagera na po?
Ang Philippine Coast Guard po, despite of the danger that is happening right now in the West Philippine Sea, despite of the dangerous maneuver, despite of the laser pointing incident, ang Philippine Coast Guard po na nagpapatulya sa West Philippine Sea, naiintindihan po namin ang danger na kaatang sa aming balikat, and we still have that commitment that we're going to comply with the directive of the President that no square inch of our territory will be surrendered to any foreign powers.
So nakikita niyo, totally kabaliktaran ito ng policy ng umalis, ng matanda, kung saan ayokong mamatay ang mga tauhan, o tayo makipag-away, kaibiganin natin. Yun ba yung nakikita ng, kasi kayo, kailangan matapang din ang leader. Ano ba yung kasabihan, Philip? Yung daw ship na 1,000 na ang leader ay leon, ang 1,000 leon na pinamumunahan ng isang tupa. Ganun ba ang damdaman niyo ngayon?
Since then and now, sir, the Philippine Coast Guard still is loyal to the flag, still knows our responsibility, and still willing to fight for the Filipino people to make sure that our exclusive economic zone, we have our constant patrol, and we will be still supporting our Filipino fishermen, sir.
Ano yung stand nyo tungkol sa proposal na joint patrols with the US Tapos may proposal with Australia and with Japan. Ano rin yung level ng discussions about these joint patrols?
I think, sir, for the joint patrol, sa mga nakaraang linggo, naging maliwanag naman ito during the visit of U.S. Defense Secretary Austin at nasabi nga na may possibility ng joint patrol. But to, of course, clarify, the joint patrol that they were discussing in the Department of National Defense level only focuses on of course, the military, which is the Philippine Navy and the United States Navy. But if you're going to ask the Philippine Coast Guard if we support also a joint patrol with the United States Coast Guard as our counterpart, of course, we also support that. We believe that the common functions of the Philippine Coast Guard and the United States Coast Guard, for example, in ensuring maritime safety, protecting the marine environment, and conducting maritime law enforcement, are those functions na makakapag-generate ng more regional cooperation among ASEAN neighbors.
Meron ng initial discussions or meetings with joint Coast Guard na US? At this point, wala ka.
For the high level, it's still on the infancy stage. Hindi pa talaga na-finalize, but there are already small talks about it.
So when do you expect something like a MOU or whatever?
It's up to the Department of Foreign Affairs, sir. It's difficult to tell.
Commodore, lumabas na makakita kami nagrarally. Bagsak ang US, Philippine, ito si paano ngayon. Anong damdamin nyo? Kasi kayo mapapalaban dyan eh. Totoo ba sa inyong pakiramdam na away lang ng US o China? Kasi kung may mag-away ang US at China, magkaibigan man sila eh. Alam ko naman tayo na agawan ng territorial eh. Nagtataksin ba yung mga nagrarally na huwag tayo makipag-alyansa dun sa ibang mga bansa para hindi tayo magawa ng territory ng China? Ang traitor or nationalist, yan sinasabi nila.
I cannot comment on that, sir. For the Philippine Coast Guard, we can just assert our role in the West Philippine Sea, but as to the people who are conducting rally against the United States, I think I'm not...
Ay, maganda lang po, tanong sundalo. Mas mapapalagay ba ang loob ninyo na may batong Amerikano na 3 kilometro ang layo sa inyo habang nagpapatrolya?
Well, if we're going to, of course, the United States, we have the Mutual Defense Treaty, sir. And secondly, sa totoo lang, with the capability that we have right now, we don't have enough number of vessels. We don't have the technology to really prove that we have a complete maritime domain awareness. So, we're not relying, but receiving assistance from the United States, particularly on those areas, would really boost our capabilities.
So parang sinabi ng ganito, ikaw ang pinakamalit sa klase mo. Pero hindi ka pwedeng ibuli. Kasi pumapasok ka, kasama ang 3 mong kuya at 4 mong pinsan.
Well, hindi naman sa hindi ka pwedeng ibuli, but hindi rin sa iiwasan, but we are expecting na pag pumasok tayo sa klase, we will abide with the school regulation.
Kailan mapasok ang Philippine Navy kung nagkaroon ng escalation ng tensions?
Sa totoo lang, sir, I still believe the importance of the Philippine Navy. For the Philippine Coast Guard, if you're going to ask us the need for the modernization of the Philippine Navy and the armed forces of the Philippines, I would still ask our legislators as well to support the armed forces of the Philippines to build credible defense capability. Ang Philippine Coast Guard, we can just de-escalate the tension to maintain our presence in the West Philippine Sea. But for those instances that there will be an actual armed attack to our Coast Guard vessels, we will still rely on the Philippine Navy to do this role of defending our territory, defending our government ships, and defending our Philippine Coast Guard. That's why it remains to be very significant for the national government not just to see Coast Guard as our priority in modernization, but also to support the modernization of the Philippine Navy.
May tanong ako dyan, Commodore. Ang attention natin natin sa may area ng Kalayaan, Group of Islands. May nagpapatrolya pa ba sa Scarborough, sa Manatag Shoal, at saka doon sa Bashik Channel, sa pagitan ng Taiwan at ng Pilipinas? May Coast Guard vessels pa ba?
Ito po yung sinasabi ko noong nakaraang interview ko, sir. No? We only have 3 offshore patrol vessels that we can commit in patrolling the West Philippine Sea. But despite of that, we also have our mandate to patrol the entire seas of our country, the exclusive economic zone. You still have Benham Lights on the eastern side. As you said, sir, you have Pasig Channel in the northern part. You also have Sulu's Celebacy to counter piracy and kidnapping and smuggling as well. And then you also have to prioritize as well the West Philippine Sea sa may Palawan. That's why we need more Coast Guard vessels. To answer your question directly, may nagpapatrol ba? Of course, we can still do patrol, but with a very limited number of vessels that we have, we can only strategically optimize kung ano muna ang magiging priority. So, it will be, sir, by schedule. But for me to say na all at the same time, pinapatulan yan, namin yan, that will definitely be a discredit sa tanong nyo, sir. Kaya, to tell you candidly, pinoprogram lang namin ang pagpapatrol, and still, the Coast Guard still knows na ito mga waters na to ay kailangan natin.
So, ang priority ngayon, yung Panatag area, at saka yung Kalayaan, Group of Islands.
Well, not so, sir. Ang deployment ng ating Coast Guard vessel, sir, the moment na umalis siya sa either on the southern part of Palawan or from El Nido, ang babaybayin niya lahat, particularly the offshore patrol vessel, is to make sure those maritime pictures na occupied natin ay kanya matadaan.
So, ilo na lahat.
Yes, sir.
So, wala na sa masyado sa Benham Lights.
Again, sir, depende yan. Kung ang offshore patrol vessel na dalawa naman, kasi nga tatlo ang OPB natin at 10 MRT, palit-palitan.
So, doon tumutulong yung Amerikano. Pag minamata ang nagsaservice sa Benham Lights, nagpapapunta kayo ng Coast Guard vessel.
I cannot answer that question, sir.
Anyway, let's ask Philip to may question siya tungkol sa modernization.
Microphone.
Alam mo, hindi na ako sanay mawak ng microphone. Tatlong taon na. Kaya nag-pandemic. But anyway, dalawa katanungan ko. Kay Commodore, una, totoo ba noong 2017, ipinapigil ni Duterte ang patrolya ng Philippine Navy at Coast Guard dyan sa West Philippine Sea sa ating exclusive economic zone. Kaya nakapagtayo ang China ng mga military base sa mga controversial na isla. At pangalawang tanong, narinig ko yung Coast Guard modernization. Meron akong sinulat kamaya kailangan sa aking kolum, gusto kong malaman ang posisyon. Siyempre, payag kayo na lakihan ang budget ng Philippine Coast Guard. Para sa taong na to, 23 billion. At kung talagang sa pangailangan natin, yung budget ng Coast Guard. Yung OBP, mayroong budget na 2.3 billion pesos. At 900 million dito, pesos, para sa financial subsidy. Yung tipong kasalbinyag living, pamimigay ng OBP, at 500 million para sa info gathering, intelligence daw. Trabaho ng DND yan, intelligence. Trabaho na naman ng DSW yung kasalbinyag living. Pahig ba kayo nailipat kahit kalahati yung budget ng OBP mapunta sa Navy o kaya sa Coast Guard? At magkano pa kailangan na budget? Magkano? Para magkaroon naman ng capability. At ano-ano yung mga capability na kailangan?
Ano yung support capability?
Siguro yung minimum required in terms of financing para sa modernization ng Coast Guard. May idea ba kayo kung this month?
Maraming pong salamat sa mga tanong niyo, sir. No? Ang hihirap po ng tanong niyo. Nahirapan ko sagutin. For your first question, sir, regarding whether President Duterte stopped the patrol of the Coast Guard and Philippine Navy that resulted to the establishment of reclaimed islands of China, I'll give you a background, sir. No? In 2012, after the Scarborough standoff that happened between the China and the Philippines, as a result of a standoff between PF-50 and the Philippine Navy wanting to conduct an arrest against the Chinese illegal fishermen in Howling Masindaw. Ang nangyari then, sir, we learned that because of the Chinese propaganda saying that the Philippines is militarizing the dispute, President Aquino changed our approach by relying on the Philippine Coast Guard vessels. That's the first time that the Philippine government shifted our approach in maintaining our presence in the West Philippine Sea through the white-to-white ship strategy. That particular strategy was carried out by President Duterte when he assumed office. And then during his time as well, the vessels that were acquired from Japan through loan were delivered from 2016, 2017 onwards during the time of President Duterte's administration. For President Duterte, the Philippine Coast Guard has been patrolling still in the West Philippine Sea, using those vessels that were delivered by Japan. And then to answer the question whether it paved the way for the creation of the reclaimed islands. I would say, sir, the reclamation of the Chinese activities in creating those reclaimed islands, sir, started even before President Duterte became president, just like 2013, 2014. And then for the Philippine Navy, sir, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, of course, I cannot speak for them whether there was a guidance from the former president to stop the patrol. But as far as the Philippine Coast Guard is concerned, we have been continuing our patrols since we have received those new vessels from Japan until now. And then the second question, sir, regarding the budget of the Philippine Coast Guard. The Philippine Coast Guard's number of personnel has been increasing. From 2016, the Philippine Coast Guard was only 8,930. When President Duterte stepped down as the president last year, our total number of personnel increased tremendously to 22,900. In short, there were like 14,000 that were added. On the first year of presidency of President Bongbong Marcos last year, he added additional 4,000. That's why we now have 26,000. Before the year ends this year, we're also expected to have additional 4,000, which will make the Philippine Coast Guard 30,000 strong. So, given that kind of support to the Philippine Coast Guard, all I can say is both administration, starting from President Pinoy Aquino, President Duterte, and current administration, they have been very supportive in building capacity and personnel of the Philippine Coast Guard. With regards to the budget, right now the Philippine Coast Guard has a budget of 23 billion pesos. Is this enough, or we are experiencing shortage? Of course, if given an option, whether they would like our lawmakers would allow us to receive more additional budget, the Philippine Coast Guard is more than willing to accept the increase in budget, sir. If the legislators themselves would choose to realign some of the budget from different sources, not just in one particular source that you mentioned, of course, the Philippine Coast Guard, sir, will also be happy to receive those realignment. And then for your third question, how much do we need for modernization of the Philippine Coast Guard to happen? The acquisition of the Coast Guard vessels are all realized through loans, through ODA loans from Japan, soft loans. So, hindi naman natin kinakailangan na magkaroon ng isang malakihang release in a one-year general appropriation for us to acquire one Coast Guard vessel. I think what we need right now, the Philippine Coast Guard need the Philippine Coast Guard modernization law so that we can be able to program those acquisition of Coast Guard offshore patrol vessels, additional aircraft, enhancing our maritime domain awareness capability, for example, building more radars, AIS, and lighthouses in different coastal areas of the country. But another thing that we really need to prioritize is that would you even believe that for the Philippine Coast Guard, despite of the multi-billion asset that we have for the OPV, for example, it's a multi-billion worth Coast Guard vessel. It's like having a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW, pero wala kang parking slot. The Philippine Coast Guard needs Coast Guard response space. We need berthing spaces for our Coast Guard vessels. Right now, some of our vessels are just dependent on the Philippine Port Authority's berthing area. And if those berthing areas will be used for commercial use, no? Or may magdidikit na commercial na foreign vessel or commercial vessel. Of course, they are paying their berthing fees, no? Ang nangyayari niyan, the Philippine Coast Guard, kami ang aalis, mag-a-anchor muna sa isang location until such time na matapos na yung pag-unload ng commercial vessel. Try to imagine having that kind of arrangement. No? Na meron kang Mercedes-Benz, tatawagin ka sa bahay mo kasi gagamitin na uli yung parking space mo ng iba. Diba? This is our priority right now for us to acquire a Coast Guard response base and to develop it. And then secondly, it is also unfortunate that the Philippine Coast Guard has been expanding tremendously with the number of personnel that we have recruited from 2016 until today. We have been recruiting for additional 4,000 this year. And yet, we don't have our own national headquarters. I don't know sa mga kasama natin sa media, pag nakakapunta siguro kayo doon, no? Sa may ano sir, sa likod ng Manila Hotel, di ba sir? Ay kita mo sir na kapag isinarado din ng PPA yung harap namin na yun, may kisuyo pa kami kapag merong parade na gagawin doon. So, I think these are the priorities that we need to have. These are basic needs that the Philippine Coast Guard is really wanting to have. Under the leadership, of course, of our good commandant, Admiral Artemio Abu. He really wants to have a national headquarters that we can be proud of, saying ito ang national headquarters ng Philippine Coast Guard. And secondly, berthing spaces where the Philippine Coast Guard can put their multi-billion assets na mapuprotektahan natin. Yan lang po, sir. I hope I was able to answer your questions.
Mabilis ang recruitment. For almost 25%. Tataas ang tawag ito. Hindi mo kaya sa kakayahan ng Coast Guard, yung absorptive capacity, yung deployment capability. Sobrang ang dami ng Coast Guard. Ay hanggang sa example, nakikita ko, nagbibilang ng pasahero ng pasyo mga Coast Guard eh. Hindi ko masobra ng Coast Guard. Pati na sa Ortigas, nagtatraffic na rin yung mga tauhan ng Coast Guard. Ito ba yung proper utilization sa ating personnel? Kung ikawawala mo naman ng inyong trabaho, yan yung punto nyo ng sagutin. No. Coast Guard. Kasi Coast Guard is under Department of Transportation. Tama ko, di ba?
Tama, sir.
Kaya sila may utilize sa traffic, bahagi sila ng IAP. Di ba?
Ako po, sir, ay spokesperson ng Coast Guard sa West Philippine Sea.
Yes, sir. Tanong ko naman sa'yo. Hindi ko alam kung before nakakaalam nito. Kasi kayong bantay sa dagat, alam niyo ba kung gaano karami ang nawawalang isda sa Pilipinas taon-taon dahil sa hindi mapuntahan ng mga Pilipino at pangalawa dahil sa nakukuha ng mga ibang tao, ng ibang nationality, yung ating mga isda sa ating karagatan. Gaano ito karami?
I think, sir, you're correct. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and the UPMSI already have this data because they already conducted research about this. But as far as the Philippine Coast Guard is concerned, when it comes to our relationship with BFAR, I think this is also a right opportunity for me to inform our media friends. The BFAR have their own vessels, but the one manning it are all Coast Guard personnel.
Di ba yung iba sa mo?
Yung mga MCS, 30 meters and 60 meters. Yes.
Question po, sabi ko sa
Okay.
Good
Good morning. Sino ka mag-submit naman ng incident report sa EFD Maritime Organization 21 incident yung sa Minnesota?
Itong February 21.
Yeah.
Yes, we have already submitted.
Anong recommendation? Nakapag-bigay ba kayo ng recommendation if that would get diplomatic?
Well, the decision on following up on the diplomatic protest lies on the DFA. We can just submit facts and evidences, and it's always up to them as to how they going to utilize those documents and proof that we submitted.
Okay. As of today po, February 25, 26 pa rin ba yung maritime militia sa Minnesota? Or nabawasan pa sila, nadagdagan? Or ano bang latest as of sa mga tao niyo po?
Honestly, as of today, I haven't received the data yet. So, ayoko namang i-shortchange ang tanong mo. But hopefully, within today, makakakuha kami ng update how many Chinese maritime militia are there in Sabina and Ayungin Shore.
Okay. Pero nandun pa sila until now?
Until now, as I said, sir, wala pa tayong update today. Okay.
Nakita provide data.
Yes, sir.
21 pa yung last po. 21 pa yung last monitoring sa kanila.
No, sir. We have a daily monitoring of those Chinese maritime militia. Yes, sir.
Nandun pa sila.
Yes, sir.
Binabanggit mo yung hindi nakikita itong gumagalaw na wala silang fishing activities. May video kayo na wala man lang silang lambat.
I think there were earlier reports na na-released ng Coast Guard before, particularly the 2021 swarming incident in Julian, Felipe. We released the public videos showing Chinese maritime militia grouped together the total amount of almost 220 something. So that video probably is the one you're looking for. But we're going to do the same thing sa mga susunod na releases natin.
Hi, sir. JC Bosca from TV5. Sir, you mentioned earlier the Chinese maritime militia and the one CCG vessel. This is as of what date, sir? In na malapit sa Ayungin and Sabina, sir.
February 20.
Okay, thank you.
Di ba may mga reclaimed island yung
Yes, sir.
ilan yun at ano ang treatment nila?
I don't know the exact number now, sir, and I don't want to be quoted naman kung ilan talaga to. But for the Philippine Coast Guard, right now we are only focusing on those maritime features that we're currently occupying, the 9 maritime features.
Ilan yung identified?
Not alin po, sir.
Reclaimed island.
I think there's already an open, you can search that, sir. Kung ilan sila. CSIS have already conducted extensive report about this.
Wala kayong protocol.
As I said, sir, the Philippine Coast Guard only patrols those areas that we are currently occupying.
Po, sir. Governor po from EBS-CBN News. Good morning po. Sir, you mentioned kanina na parang previously hindi napapublicize lahat ng mga maritime incidents sa West Philippine Sea. What changed na pinapublicize na siya? And what's the reason po behind yung hindi mag-publicize sa previous incidents?
Right now, that is the stand of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea. Of course, as you may be aware, NDFWPS is composed of a lot of different forest agencies. And it was decided that all of these incidents will be made publicly available, recognizing the fact that for us to expect changes from how China would react is to expose those bullying activities and aggressive behavior of China.
Anong year po yung hindi po masyado nag-publicize yung task force ng mga experts? Yung mga years po kaya na pwedeng ibigay.
I can only speak for the incidents that I have publicized.
Okay, sige po.
Hindi lang po yung Chinese Coast Guard ang naglalayag, lumalakot sa lugar na yan. Maliban pa sa China, ano yung behavior ng Vietnamese Coast Guard, Malaysian Coast Guard, Indonesian Coast Guard, and Brunei Coast Guard? Nakakadirian po ba yun sila? O talagang China lamang? May Taiwanese Coast Guard po dyan.
For other Coast Guard ships that nakikita namin sa West Philippine Sea, of course, they're also only confined in those spaces na occupied nila. No? So, there are no instances that we can say that there is harassment, radio, or aggressive radio challenge. No? There is somewhat respect with each other because we are just maintaining the status quo as far as ASEAN claimant states are concerned.
Yung ASEAN, meron ba kayong, iba sa China, meron kayong direct line na pwede tumawag? Supposedly,
Not anymore, sir.
not anymore. Pero sa ASEAN, among ASEAN Coast Guard, meron kayong direct line na pwede magtawagan?
We don't have direct line, sir. But of course, our Southeast Asian Coast Guard have their own ways to communicate. And we now have the Southeast Asian Maritime Law Enforcement Initiative. This is like an organization among the Coast Guard in Southeast Asia.
At nakompletohin ko na po ang tanong. May nangyari ba kahit isang insidente na nag-radio challenge itong Southeast Asian Coast Guard sa barko ng Coast Guard o sa aeroplano ng Coast Guard?
So far, sir, that I know, wala pa pong instance na nagkaroon tayo ng tirian among Vietnam Coast Guard. Hindi po tayo nagkaroon ng sitwasyon na nakamas natin ang isa't isa. As I said, for this Southeast Asian Coast Guards, they are just focusing on the status quo. So mga maritime features na occupied nila, ito lang talaga ang pinagpapatulyahan nila.
So, kung sabi ka, tiis ang bully sa lugar na yan.
Well, you can say that.
Di ba yung Indonesia, may pinasabog silang Chinese fishing vessel?
Vietnam din, meron.
Kaya ba yun? And do you think that the tension could escalate into something like this?
Well, if we're going to compare, tagal sa academic na yung sagot ko dito, pero, well, first of all, sir, Natuna Island is not a contested area in the South China Sea. There are no other claimant states among Southeast Asian countries in Natuna Island. Ang nagkakagirian lang ang China at ang Indonesia because of that Natuna Island, because it falls inside the 9-dash line. But as far as Indonesia is concerned, wala siyang claim sa South China Sea, sir.
Good morning, Commodore. Will you describe the situation as a worsening situation in the area of conflict? Would you describe it as a worsening situation?
Honestly, sir, I don't think so. I don't see the last incidents as worsening situation. For me, the only reason why we are talking about this now is because the Philippine Coast Guard, through the guidance of the National Task Force West Philippine Sea, we made this available to the public. But it doesn't mean that the situation has been worsening. We can probably say that this was what is really happening in the South China Sea in the past years, but definitely this is not an escalating tension.
So you assure our people not to worry that much, that this thing will result in the escalation.
For the national government, sir, the main reason why we are relying on our Philippine Coast Guard vessels as our front line in our deployment in the West Philippine Sea. It's because our national government believes that white ships is not provocative among other claimant states in South China Sea. Second, we de-escalate the tension. We can take all those dangerous maneuvers of China without, making sure that things will still be settled diplomatically, and we will still abide with the peaceful means of resolving our differences.
With respect to the Red Bank, where they had before a seismic survey of the mineral fossil fuel, the possibility of. Are you trying to see if China has already started siphoning the fossil fuel in that area?
I don't think so that China has already started siphoning. That's not possible.
Okay. How about the Scarborough Shoal? In 2012, we withdrew our forces from Scarborough Shoal based on the advice of America. Have we went back and placed our forces there?
During the start of 2012, sir, I agree with you. The United States government brokered the deal between the Philippines and China for us to withdraw all our forces. It is unfortunate that the United States government, the Chinese forces did not withdraw during that time. And for the Philippines, we withdrew. And then from then on, they have been dominating and effectively, maintaining their presence there. To answer your question, whether are we still patrolling the areas in Bajo de Masinloc, in Scarborough, I would like to refer to you what we did last November. We brought journalists and some media personnel to join our MDA flight as well in Scarborough to show that the Philippine Coast Guard vessels are still patrolling our area in Bajo de Masinloc, and also to show that there are still Filipino fishermen there, also escorted by our two Coast Guard vessels. One 44-meter vessel, and of course, BRP Gabriela Sila, the AT301.
Thank you.
So that worsening situation, are you telling us na the difference is the same?
What I'm saying, sir, is that it's not worsening. The only difference is that we are telling the public what is happening.
Ulitin ko lang. So among the claimant countries, lahat ay deny sa medical balance. China lang ang malignant.
You can say that, sir.
Okay, kung wala na question, kami hapon last David.
Sir, if you can check lang your report sa inyo kahapon. Gano'n karami pa yung... If you can share more details about the report that was submitted to you as of yesterday, how many vessels pa, militia vessels pa, yun na doon sa Sabina o Ayungin Shoal? Yes, sir.
I have yet to confirm whether I'm authorized to share the data that was submitted. The data that we present is always vetted by the NTF-WPS. So as far as the data that we released last February 22, that's the data that was only approved by NTF-WPS. And I don't want to go beyond that authority that was entrusted to the Philippines.
But what you can confirm is, until yesterday, ano pa sila?
What I can confirm is that there is still Chinese Maritime Militia and China Coast Guard Resto in Ayungin in Sabina Shoals.
Thank you po, sir.
May protocol na ba kayo handa just in case matuloy yung joint patrol? Kasi may kasabihan sa anumang alliance, mayroong kaso na the dog is wagging the tail and the tail is wagging the dog. Baka may isang diyang, hindi malasing, baka may isang emosyonal na opisyal na pinakamahitang bansa doon sa alyansa, biglang magpapatok, madrag yung malalaking bansa doon sa malaking away. So, meron pa kayong pagkasali ngayon o panibagong protocol na paiiralin in anticipation sa pagdating ng joint patrol?
We haven't discussed that yet, sir. Again, the joint patrol between the United States Coast Guard and the Philippine Coast Guard is still in the infancy stage. Those kind of situations and circumstances were not yet considered.
Pero gagawa kayo yan bago magsimula yung joint patrol.
Definitely, sir. Standard operating procedure will be in place before the joint patrol will be executed.
Okay, wala na question. Commodore Jay Tarriela, so receiving actually very good overview of the situation in the West Philippine Sea and the role of the Coast Guard in defending national sovereignty and national integrity. Maraming salamat, Commodore. On that note, we'd like to thank everyone for coming over and we'll see you next Saturday. Siguro, if you want to interview si Commodore one-on-one, you can do so. Thank you very much.